What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and today I have another amazing athlete interview in store for you guys today. Joining me on the show today is a freshman running back for the Bryant University Bulldogs. This past season, he appeared in 11 total games and broke both the freshman rushing yards record and touchdowns record with 652 yards and 9 TDs. He is also a fellow podcaster, as he is the host of the Touch Minds podcast. So without any further ado, hailing from Ottawa, Ontario, please welcome to the show, Fabrice Mukendi. Fabrice, how are you doing, man?
First of all, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm happy to be here, and I'm doing very well.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. And, you know, from one podcaster and athlete to another, I'm glad to have you on the show, man. It's amazing to have you on, and I'm really glad to have gotten to know you throughout this past semester, and so we could establish this connection.
Yeah. So am I, man.
Yeah. So for, anyone who maybe wouldn't know, Fabrice and I kind of met over last semester. He approached me about wanting to start a podcast of his own. Then we kind of spoke on his athletic background, and that has led to this show today. I am so psyched to now have him on joining us here today. And Fabrice, we got a lot to talk about, but I guess to start things off for yourself, as a guy coming from Canada and, coming from up north, how did you kind of get started in football at a young age?
Started about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And basically, I saw my cousin, older cousin, play football. He actually ended his career in the NFL.
Oh, wow.
And just seeing him play, I was inspired. It was it looked fun as well. So I said, yeah, why not sign up? Mm-hmm. And when signing up, they had first told me I was too small to play. So his dad approached the coach, and it started off right there.
Mm-hmm. Who was your cousin?
His name is Christo Bilukidi.
Okay.
Played for the Bengals, really? The Raiders, and I believe Minnesota.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check that out after the show. But that's amazing, man, to kind of have that connection. What was that like for you at an early age to kind of have a connection like that, and to have someone to mentor yourself after like that?
Man, it's inspiring. Just recently, before I went to university, actually, we had a chance to talk, and he kind of mentored me to understand how university and stuff like that would have been. But yeah, man, it's inspiring because especially where I'm from in Ottawa, not a lot of people make it out in the football route. Mm-hmm. So being the fact that he's also my cousin, somebody that I'm close to, and seeing him do what he did, was very inspiring for me as a young kid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of coming from Ottawa, the football route isn't normally the way you see a lot of people go. Typically, it is kind of the hockey route that you see a lot of people go from up in Canada. Something that I found to be really interesting about yourself. Not only were you a football player growing up, you also played a slew of sports. I'm actually going to pull up possibly if I could. Kind of having some difficulties here, so I was going to try to pull up some of your stats from. Oh, here we go. So kind of looking over here, you can, I kind of have your player profile right here. And one of the things I see here is, during your high school career, before you ended up coming here, you also competed in volleyball, basketball, hockey, track, and wrestling throughout your career. I mean, man, that is quite the resume to have for yourself there. That is just an insane amount of sports to play at once. How did you, get involved with all of that just so young? I mean, how did you balance all that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'll say this, I wasn't the complete best at every sport that I played.
Yeah.
But one thing about me is I just like moving. I like physical activity. So I tried to implicate myself in as much sports as I could have. Yeah. And I got into basketball and volleyball from back home. I always had a ball in my hands. It was either football or basketball. And volleyball was through, my high school. And I got into other sports when going to my private school, Salisbury. They had a wrestling team, and I was very intrigued. And so I signed up. And it was an awesome experience. It also helps me with understanding my game a little bit more. Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of different aspects to every sport, I feel like, especially soccer. I grew up playing soccer.
There's just another one to add to the list.
Yeah. The quick feet aspect of it, for example, kind of helped me transition to my sport a lot better than I believe.
That's amazing. So, I mean, obviously playing a ton of sports like that, you're working out a bunch of different muscles and stuff. When did it, I mean, kind of besides football, what was probably the next sport that you would say you were, you were closest to being, really good at?
Uh,
Like your
I
number
would
two.
say I would say my number two would be volleyball.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. My first year wasn't the best, but I learned to love the game actually.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
obviously, you play a ton of sports when you're younger. And then it comes to making a decision for college and maybe wanting to make the choice to move on and, pursue a career in athletics, whatever it may be. Obviously, you had a ton of options going into where it could be. You were kind of like a human Swiss Army knife with that. But then I guess what made you just say, all right, I've played all these sports, I've had this experience, but you know what, football is what I want to do. What made you basically, choose that?
Just cause I just feel like my love for the game was always more veered towards football than any other sport.
Okay.
Like for example, the entire summer I'd play basketball with my friends and doing all sorts of other activities. But basketball, I really like doing it, just for fun. But
Yeah.
love was always veered towards football, even as a little kid. So
Mhm.
I think my mind was always made up on what I wanted to do. So it wasn't really much of a deciding factor for me when it came down to football. It was one,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously, I talked about your cousin who probably instilled a deep love for the game with you when you were younger. Were there any
Yeah.
other coaches or mentors maybe that you grew up, while you were on the field playing that really inspired you and kind of helped you take your game to the next level?
Yeah, man. I've been lucky to have a group, like a large list of people that supported me and believed in me. And if I were to name every single person, it'd be very hard to. But I had coaches, players, and even just recently, like just coaches that believed in me.
Yeah.
And as a young kid, that's important, to have a gang of people behind you believing in you and your dreams. So I had, just to name a few, Victor Tedondo. He was off-season training for me. My head coach, Jeff Karate. A lot of people helped me get to the path of where I wanted to be and where I am now. So
Yeah.
through those coaches, those players, man, I'm really thankful for them.
Yeah. So for someone like yourself, you talked about kind of people labeling you as too short when you were younger and and that kind of dissuading you when you were younger. For yourself, obviously, that's a lot of adversity to battle through and kind of build up in yourself to even have a career that goes beyond high school, even into high school. For yourself, though, when you ended up starting to have things kind of come together for you, when did it occur to you? All right, I've had to battle through a lot when I was younger. I had some adversity on my side. But now I'm actually kind of performing. When did it occur to you, hey, I might have a shot to play football at the Division 1 level?
That's a very good question, man. I think it really clicked for me when I started getting attention from these private schools.
Yeah.
Like I always thought of Division 1 as an idea, but when the idea became more realistic when that first private school reaching out to me finally happened, and then I was like, okay, I could believe I could really do this.
Yeah.
But then it really, really clicked once I stepped foot on that American turf and did what I was known to do, and that was score touchdowns.
Mhm.
I was I was convinced then, honestly.
Yeah. So obviously you did end up coming to a private school in America before you did end up going on to Bryant. You went to the Salisbury School in Connecticut. What was that whole experience like? Coming from going to a different country. I know it's like right down from one another, but obviously you're going to a different country, different customs, different everything. Just to play a sport. What was that whole experience like? Just having to adjust and live away from home for that first time.
I love that question. There's many different aspects to it. First off, you're a young kid, you're 16, 17, you're stepping away from home for the first time. Not a lot of people go through that experience, but for
That's
me,
crazy.
it was probably the best thing that I've done
Mhm.
recently in my life. Just making that decision. First of all, it was an all boys school,
Okay.
so and we had school from Monday to Saturday, for example. So it
Oh.
was really a space where you're either in your books or in your sport or whatever it is,
Mhm.
or in the other. You know what I'm saying? Because you didn't really have time to just to be out partying and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it got me a chance to really like focus on what it was that I wanted and stuff like that. So that experience was awesome. Being
Yeah.
away from home was awesome.
Yeah. So do you think the kind of the, you know, c- the adjustment that you had to make going into a private school down in Connecticut helped, obviously helped your growth and maturity when it came to going to college. Obviously, a ton of kids your age, freshmen, they're going to be out partying, doing like God knows what freshman year. There's a lot of distractions, a lot of things that can be going on. Do you think that your experience helped you kind of mature and when it came to you coming to college?
Yeah, most definitely I agree with that. Just because like it's kind of the idea of a lot of people are first going through it right now.
Yeah.
That idea of, I have freedom, total freedom. But I've been through it already, so I kind of know what to do in my free time and stuff like that. So it kind of like also helped me balance with school and football
Mm-hmm.
and all other aspects of my life. I've been through it already for 2 years, so going into university, it wasn't anything new, really.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when it did come to Bryant though, and obviously you ended up settling on going to Smithfield to, pursue your football career. What made you say, all right, I've looked around, you had, you went to this private school. What made you end up saying, all right, I like Bryant and I think that this is where I think my next path is gonna be? Like what made you come to that decision?
It was an interesting decision how it all came to be. And I really feel like where I am right now is for the bigger purpose, and God placed me where I am. Because at
Mhm.
first, I didn't decide on going to Bryant University.
Okay.
Like it was my first or my only offer. So I had other decisions that I was balancing, and I had decided another school called Holy Cross.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
then it came to be where Bryant ended up just being the best decision after Holy Cross. Now seeing it was the best decision over Holy Cross now that I'm here, but
Why was it the best decision for you?
Holy Cross or Bryant?
To go to step away from Holy
Oh,
Cross and go to Bryant?
yeah. The reason why is because also, like, aside from football, I'm really into business, and seeing
Mhm.
that Bryant not only had a very good business program, but an international business program.
Yeah.
I was intrigued in that, and the whole culture aspect of it. They had a new coach coming in. Shout out
Mhm.
Coach Merritt. So the whole idea of Bryant football culture was shifting, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can definitely tell the international business is something that is huge at Bryant. I know. Don't you speak a little bit of French yourself?
Yeah, I do. I do. It's
Yeah.
actually my first language.
Really? That's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. So
yeah.
obviously that's an amazing thing to have going into an international business program here at Bryant University. I guess the next thing I kind of have to ask is, obviously you've only been at Bryant for a short time so far. But what have been some of the favorite memories that you've been able to have in this short time?
Oh, probably on the football field.
Yeah.
Definitely training camp. Yeah, now thinking about it, training camp. It's basically this idea where a whole bunch of kids first knowing each other, this and that, come together for I'd say a month or 3 weeks.
Hmm.
You sleep in the same dorms, you do everything together and just focus on the game of football that you all basically a passion that you all share. So it was an amazing experience, being with the fellas and getting ready for the trenches football.
Yeah.
That
I
was an
mean,
amazing experience.
yeah, absolutely. So obviously the grind of kind of doing a camp like that can be very tough, especially on a lot of guys that maybe aren't ready for a regimen like that, or just new guys
Yeah,
in general going in and having to, work in a D1 college program. That's no, short task. That takes a lot
yeah.
of effort
I'll
and a
say it
lot of
was it
like,
was definitely tough for me.
yeah. How did you kind of persevere through that then?
I persevered through it just knowing that I wanted to be where I wanted to be and where I was for the right reason. So no matter how hard it was and stuff like that, and no matter how many injuries I was piling up on, it was like it was kind of like a thing that reminded me of, yo, you're here for a reason and you love the sport. Now it's time to do what you love.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
the love for the sport kind of reminded me while I was there.
no, I mean, it can be a very humbling experience. I know for a lot of people, I've talked with some athletes on the show of their experiences with these training camps, and it can be kind of a culture shock when they go into it. Did your experience at the Salisbury school and stuff like that, did that have some level of preparation for you, or was there still kind of a bit of a adjustment that you had to make?
Yeah, there was definitely an adjustment. Like from high school to college, even the training camps are a lot more demanding and stuff like that when you get to college.
Yeah.
Like they basically teach you the game in a way you've never heard of it before, or
Mm.
in a more deeper level to it. You know what I'm saying? So it was a lot more demanding, and I had to adjust to it.
Yeah. What were some of the more like what were some of the more complex things that they were trying to explain to you and stuff?
Just for example, the running back position,
Okay.
we'd watch hours on hours of film, and it could be the most tiny things that I've never even thought of doing back in high school or when I was taught the position of running back. So you're really coming in as a fresh mind, learning this
Mhm.
game and in a new lens. And what's interesting is what my cousin had told me was that once you get to the next level, meaning the NFL, it's the same thing. You learn the game in a whole different aspect that you've never heard of.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Obviously, coming in fresh mind, there's a ton of fresh minds just in general going into Bryant right now. Obviously, this offense that we saw this year for the Bulldogs had some young faces. Yours being one of them, the other being starting quarterback this year, Zevi Ekos. So kind of your main man in the backfield there. What was it like having to work with a bunch of guys that obviously you guys are in a similar position, but you're trying to compete on a Division I football field. What was it like trying to have to work with those guys on the field like that in a very stressful situation?
It was basically it was a cool experience. I'll say that first and foremost.
Yeah.
Like we just understood that every single one of the people from that freshman class has a level of work ethic trying to beat the person ahead of them.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a camaraderie between the freshman players that came together, and just playing with somebody like Zevi or a couple other freshmen on the field. It's kind of like a reassurance that, yo, I'm not the only one doing this, and this person right next to me is kind of working as hard as me. So
Yeah.
it's dope to have a lot of freshmen, that
Mhm.
know exactly what they want and why they're here.
Yeah. And then I guess going off that, this could be a guy who he could be a freshman or not, but just for a teammate of yours that's probably really helped with your development, who would be someone you would help with, you would kind of credit a lot of your development to this year? Maybe it could even just be a kind of a friend of yours that you've really been able to connect with on the team. Like who would be someone like that to you?
Oh, the running back room. The older guys in the running back room. First and foremost, first person that comes in head is like Dan, for example.
Yeah.
Not only did he play RB, but he's also from Canada, so he's been through exactly what I'm going through right now. So I'd go to him for a lot of advice and mentorship. Ishad, for example, I'm
Mm,
glad he's coming back for another year because it's always good to have wisdom on the team.
yeah.
And yeah, a couple of other guys like Aaron and Shay.
Yeah. Didn't Dan declare for the draft?
Yeah, yeah, he did,
That's
which is
amazing, man.
amazing news.
Yeah, I wish him the best with that because I mean, it's a lot of players. Hopefully, he could be one of those guys that gets picked. I mean, I'm gonna be rooting for him all the way. So that's something I'm really excited about with him too. So having just a mentor and leadership of a guy like that to be able to help you because it kind of you and Dan were kind of like the 1-2 punch in that backfield for a lot of the season. What was it like to kind of work with a guy that has that experience and then have him help lead you along the way like that? Like how that dynamic kind of work out?
I liked having uh like an older guy ahead of me. Not only was he older, but he had something that I could have learned from. So having that 1-2 punch was basically me looking at myself and looking at Dan saying, okay, not only is he older, but he's been through a lot more in this game that I have, so I could learn from him. So it
Yeah.
was an awesome experience, being with somebody with a lot more knowledge in the game, learning in that sense. So I really took that learning phase
Yeah.
and embraced it as a freshman.
Yeah, absolutely. So, while someone like him may have a couple more years experience in the game than you obviously played a significant amount of football in your life. We talked about the height. We talked about you talking about your height when you were younger. But I want to know what were there any other real objectives or things that you or obstacles rather that you kind of had to overcome during your career? And what was it for you? It could be an injury, it could be other people doubting you on things besides your height, things like that. What would be another obstacle that you kind of had to get through in your career?
I would say my knee injury.
Really?
Been through a couple injuries, and I'd say probably my knee one was probably the biggest one that I've been through,
Yeah.
just because it caused, or I had
What
to
was
have two surgeries from it.
what was up with your knee? ACL?
That was LCL, so a lateral
Ooh,
meniscus, and
yeah.
I had torn it.
How'd you
But
do
that
that?
was,
Just
yeah, it was just making a cut. Ironically, it wasn't a hit or nothing. I just made a cut, and
those
my
can be the
meniscus.
worst too, the
Yeah,
non-contacts.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of my biggest obstacles. I'd say the most notable one was myself, and I had to overcome my self doubts as a young kid. So just overcoming that and knowing that once I overcome myself, there's nothing that could overcome me.
hmm Yeah. So obviously, how did you kind of get? What were some of the things that helped you overcome those things, and kind of get to the point that you're at that now? Then.
Oh, the first thing is my faith.
Mm,
Most definitely my faith. I tried to have a positive outlook on everything that was going on, whether it was my injury or it was doubters and stuff like that. So my faith was definitely a cornerstone of my life.
Yeah, that is something. In the short time that I've known you and talked to you, that's something that you've been very adamant about. When I've talked with you, who kind of instilled that in you at a young age? Like, where'd you get this sense of? Where did you get this? Real strong, faith from?
Luckily, I've grown up in a Christian household
hmm
from a family of prayer and stuff like that. So faith was instilled in me at a young age,
hmm
but I really got a chance to grow into my own faith and my own um, religious views as I grew older. And during that time, my Salisbury actually had a chance to develop that side of me.
Mm.
And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I know for one, you ended up even creating a podcast for yourself. You created the Touch Minds podcast, based
yeah,
on faith and stuff. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that and a little bit on that?
yeah, I'd love to. So the Touch Mind podcast was the idea of the Touch Mind podcast came to be when me, Dan Adebaboye, and Kyle Sahanowski were just chilling on the bus, and we're like, yeah, we have a faith into us, and that we're very passionate about. And the Touch Mind podcast was actually an idea to tell the people about
Mm,
the truth that we believe in, and to
yeah.
inspire people in that sense to look into faith in their own, because a lot of people grow up with a faith that they don't really know.
hmm
So Touch Mind podcast isn't only like a way to tap into people's curiosities, but to also inspire people in that sense. And faith being the number one aspect in our lives, we found that that's a way we could touch
Yeah.
minds.
Yeah. You'd love to see it, man. So
Yeah,
obviously, there's a lot of things that you could do with that moving forward. I guess kind of as you do move forward, whether it be with whether it be with your podcast or with football or just some other things in general, man. I gotta wonder, what are some goals that you have for yourself, whether it be on and off the field. What are some things that you hope to accomplish in these next couple of years?
yeah. Before I answer that though, I just want to say thank you for helping us through that whole podcast experience. I'm learning
Oh
from you
yeah.
in that sense, and it's been a cool experience. Learning and be behind you.
Yeah,
Doing that.
hundred
But
100%, man. I mean, I love the content that you've been putting out so far. I was able to help you out and get some stuff going so far. From what I heard, that you ended up releasing your first episode or so
yeah,
just recently, right?
yes, sir, I did.
Yeah. So that's now available on Spotify and everything.
Yeah, it's available on Spotify, and we'll also make it available on YouTube
Oh
uh,
well, per
sometime soon.
Oh, perfect. I'll make sure to. I don't know if you have any social medias or anything, but I'll at least make sure to credit you and then everything else in the description with that. So
So,
obviously, then on to the next thing. It could be whether it be through faith or your podcast or through playing. What are some things that you kind of hope to accomplish in these next couple of years at Bryant?
uh, the biggest accomplishment that I feel like would be crucial in my career and in my life would be to get a master's from Bryant, and that's something I'm
Mm,
putting my head down and looking to do. And
yeah.
also, of course, this football thing. I didn't come to Bryant just to end my career at Bryant. I hope
mhm,
to take my talents at the level after that, whether it's NFL or CFL, whatever it might be. So
Hey,
to advance my career first and foremost in both football and not for football.
Absolutely, man. I wish you the best with doing all that. It's a tough thing to kind of go for. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of things. But listen, man, you're on the right track by breaking those freshman records. You got a great set of guys behind you in that QB room. But before we end up, kind of closing things out, man, I guess I do want to ask, obviously, whether things were to end at Bryant or if you were to go on and play to the great heights of the NFL or the CFL, eventually for everyone, football and athletics, it does kind of come to an end. So I guess what I have to ask you before we do go is, for you, what is something that you want to pursue when, you do hang up the cleats?
Something I really want to pursue is my career in the business realm.
Mm,
I really want to tap into these global markets,
okay.
more specifically in my country and my continent of origin, which is Congo.
Oh, wow.
So if I could tap into that, or I will when my career is over. That's probably the most exciting thing that I'm looking to do in my life. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's definitely
Absolutely.
something I want to do. But in a more general sense, I would say to touch minds and to inspire people.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I guess then as well, is there any other, in terms of touching minds and doing all that stuff moving forward, is there any other future implications that of your faith that you would like to have once you're done with football as well and kind of explore?
Yeah, I would love to explore stuff like building churches or
Mm,
doing stuff, around Christ, having a Christ-centered career. And even if it's that's in business, having a Christian view in what I do or in sports. And I don't know, like that's a very good question. I would love to look into it more, but
yeah. I
with
mean,
faith,
no,
sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, with faith, I feel like it could be something like connecting to the youth. That could be something very simple and practiced, but it's exciting. I'll say
Yeah.
that.
No, I mean, absolutely, man. There's a ton of exciting stuff that can go along with that. And also, here's the thing. You're still what? Like 18, 19 years old?
Yeah,
Yeah.
19.
So you're 19 years old. You're still very young. You got a lot of time to figure out what you're going to be doing with the rest of your life. And I'm saying this as a guy who's literally a year older than you. So I mean, I don't know what I don't know what I'm doing either. So trust me, we're all trying to make things work. That's why we're at, that's why we're going on for colleges. That's why we're, like yourself, trying to eventually go on and get a master's degree, and then do bigger things in our lives, whether that be, on the field or off, whether that be touching minds or, building and building bridges and doing what we need to do there. So there's a ton of great things that can be on the horizon for a bunch of us. But for Fabrice, man, I am so grateful for bringing you on the show today. It has been a blast having you on to talk to you about everything. But man, I think it is time to say that we are now officially down to the wire, which means that we're going to do a little run through of what we talked about in today's episode, and we will send you guys on your way into the weekend. So obviously, we welcomed in freshman running back Fabrice Mukendi to the show to talk with him about his college football career. It was a blast having him on the show. Fabrice, thank you so much, man.
I'm glad, man. I'm glad I had a chance to do this. This was fun.
Yeah. So obviously, throughout the show, we got to talk with Fabrice about his football career as well as a little bit into his podcast. I'll make sure to shout that out at when this video comes out. Very, very grateful that I was able to help him out and get that started off the ground. But listen, I gotta say, it's a blast getting a chance to do these athlete interviews. And if for anyone listening, if you're an athlete or if you're just someone with a story and you want to come on down the wire, I will say 100%, get out there, DM me, and I'll make something happen. And if you want to DM me, you can find me on my Instagram at down.to-the-wire on Instagram. Again, at down.to-the-wire. And if you're just trying to find the podcast in general, we're available everywhere you guys stream podcasts, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, YouTube. But it's available everywhere you can find us. But I think that we are now officially out of time. Fabrice, thank you so much for coming on, man. And from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Fabrice Mukendi.
And we will see you guys next time. Take care and peace out.
Peace and love, man. Peace.